softwares that make, presentations sharp, and it's a whole lot more than just words printed on a page, and you can do graphics like this. There's an advancement in it. The goal, the vision is still the same. The vision in church context is everybody worshiping in unison, knowing the words so that we can worship God. Vision is still the same, but the strategy is different over time. You guys see what I'm talking about? Okay, now, you could probably go to churches in this area right now that still use hymnals, and that works for them and the group of the people that are there. But I promise you, it's dated. Promise you, that's just a sign of how that organization operates overall. And I bet you there's going to be a lot of tradition and a lot of religion and a lot of roadblocks to advancement and moving forward to the larger picture of vision that's there. Vision. The strategy gets you to the vision. Catalogs and sales, that was big. Y'all remember that big 50-pound Sears and Roebuck's catalog that used to come out? Don't see that so much anymore. Why? Because everything's digital. You can go to websites. It's moved forward. You know, if you got a huge catalog from a company, that's a rare thing nowadays because print costs they're expensive. Digital stuff is way cheap. You might pay a design fee if you don't know how to do the graphic yourself. You know, but technology moves forward. Live stream stuff, you see that? That's a big, in our world, in church world, that's another big line in the sand between moving into a new day and age and churches that have not. During COVID-19, upwards of 6,000 churches a month were shutting down. 90+% of those churches were churches that did not live stream their services and did not have online giving available for the people in their church. They didn't keep up with technology, and when something arose that kept people from coming to the church physically, it tanked. It tanked. They even say still, right now, that 1 out of every 5 churches in this country will close down this year. And part of the reason is because they still have not moved forward with this technology. And the other part is they're slowly bleeding out because they did not make the change fast enough. And they weren't able to get it into the culture of the organization, so the people weren't used to it when they introduced it too late, and it never got traction, and the churches implode. So there's always going to be a decline if you don't make a change in the strategy. And that's when you move from decline to nostalgia. You ever been at a business talking about how sales used to be, talking about how amazing things were when so-and-so was running the place before they sold it, or when so-and-so was the manager, you know? Just how many of y'all love going to Blockbuster every Friday night now? Yeah, because it's not there anymore, right? It's not there anymore. Netflix knocked Blockbuster out of the game, but it wasn't Netflix themselves. It was that Netflix recognized a change in culture and got in on it first. Blockbuster didn't recognize it until it was too late to do anything about it, and Netflix had become the thing. Blockbuster represented the past, and even though they tried to step into the technology, it took too long for them to get it going, and it just fell apart. I think there's one Blockbuster still open, or did it close? The last one finally closed. Crazy when you think about that. But everything made the move, and they didn't move with it. Nostalgia is where you don't want to be, where everybody talks about how things used to be. In churches, you'll hear, well, it was awesome when we did that kind of outreach, or went to that kind of place, or when this happened. And that. Conversations like that are red flags and bad news. Okay? Now, there are always going to be pockets of people that love the good old days, and there's nothing wrong with celebrating that stuff. But if as an organization, even in the top tiers of leadership, you find yourselves talking about way back when, and it's business as usual, you got problems. Nostalgia always comes before death. Always. Well, it was great way back when. It was awesome. We love those hymnals. It's amazing. You know, we don't do it. We're not selling out like these fancy churches trying to be all high tech. We like our hymnals and the Spirit of God, and that's all we need. Well, guarantee you, if Jesus could use technology to get the message out, he would use technology to get the message out, because he was using the latest, greatest tool that he had when he was ministering on the earth. He taught through parables and stories, parables and stories, parables and stories. We're doing the same thing today to reach culture today. So here's what you have to do as a leader. All right, is this making sense so far? All right, I don't want to talk over you guys. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys stuff that you can actually use. So you don't want to wait too long for the cycle of change. If you look on that graph, you're going to see an A and you're going to see a B. All right, this is where you want to make change happen in the course of the life of your organization. So you got the vision, you implement the strategy's working, and you can wait until B to make the change, but really you've waited too long, because you're going to start to decline before you can get the change implemented. So what you want to do is, while the strategy is rocking and rolling and everything's clicking and it's just home run, home run, home run, win, 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 you want to start thinking about the next step then. You want to start praying about the next step then, to be proactive on it. You want to start the change at A. And this is going to create something that my friend Scott Wilson likes to call chaos. I don't know if I like that phrase, but it's in here. And it kind of is, because to everybody else, the change that you're implementing at this point is not going to make sense. Why are we getting ready to change stuff? What we're doing right now is working. We're seeing new people come into the church. We're reaching the lost. Sales are great right now. Why are we talking about changing up strategies? Because it's working now. Well, it's only working now for a season. So you have to have the prayer life and the foresight and the skill set, really, to be able to predict, anticipate, and see what that next step in the organization needs to be. Why are we doing this? Why the new facility? Everything's great at this one. Why do we need them? They can't see that growth needs to take place, and it can't take place because there's not room. You see that as a leader. They don't, so you got to walk them through that process. And here's what happens. Follow your chart over. There's a little X in the word WOW, W-O-W. From that X, if you implement change around A, before you drop down into decline, you are implementing your new strategy in that window. Go ahead and take a line and just mark it, just whoosh, curve it up, because that's where you're going as an organization. You're going to the next level. Okay? You are adopting a new strategy to accomplish the vision that's going to take you a step closer to what God is calling you to look like as a business or as a ministry. And you're never going to have to worry about decline. Potentially, you will never have to worry about it. You won't have to worry about the nostalgia, because you're moving forward consistently and you're creating momentum. The momentum of change will carry you out into the next step. It'll be awesome when you start working it. A lot of times leaders fall into the trap of not doing this soon enough. And so they're constantly trying to recreate momentum in their organization, that excitement, that passion, that cool stuff that's happening that you can't really quantify, but you know, like it changes football games all the time. One play on the football field can change the course of a game because the crowd gets into it and you feel that momentum shift happen. When you have momentum, everything is awesome. You don't have to find yourself in a cycle of recreating that momentum. You can springboard off of success to success to success if you stay ahead of the game on change. So here's a question for you. If you flip the page, where is your church, where's your ministry, or your business on this chart? Now take a second and think about it. I'll kind of ramble for a little bit while you're looking at it. Probably you've got a gut feeling right now on where it is. You guys watching this video, you have a gut feeling right now on where it is. Now, don't fall into the trap of trying to micromanage every aspect of your overall business, every department of your church, or every person that's on your team. Just think in general. In general, what stage are we in? Are we thriving, moving towards the vision with a great strategy? Or are we tipping into decline because we've been riding this wave for a while and it's starting to die off? Are people getting nostalgic? Are we flirting with death because there's no momentum, no vision, no success, no nothing? What Where are you at in this? This is key. You have to be honest in asking these questions. Where are you at? Where are you at? Probably every month, every quarter, I'll ask myself these questions. Where are we at? 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 Now here's a tip. You never change for the sake of change. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying you've got to constantly be changing things. Some things it's years before you have to look at change. But usually those changes are major changes, and they take years to prepare for. You never change for the sake of change. Change to align yourself with the next steps needed for growth. I'm going to walk you through for the next couple of minutes my process for figuring out what those next steps are. So when you figure out the steps, then you can figure out what's necessary to get from point A to point B. So first you got to honestly assess where you are. Now I asked you to think about where you were at on that chart a little while ago. Probably to yourself, that trouble area, if there is one, just boop, 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 it started blinking. He said, yeah, that's going to be the thing right there. The problem is when you go public with that information, we make it look pretty, don't we? Sometimes. Yeah, we got a problem over here, but yeah, we're working on that and we're going to change it and all that. No, you got to be honest with where you are, because if you're not honest with where you are, you don't have a true starting point. So the trap that we fall into as leaders is that we try to assess where we are through the lens of vision, where we're headed, to make where we are not look as ugly as it really is. Man, you just got to own it. You have to own it. Okay? You have to own the fact that this is not where it needs to be, or you're wanting it to be, or it's an issue that needs to be corrected. You got to own it and be honest with it, because if not, look, eventually death is on the horizon. It's on the horizon, so own it. You got to be honest. So you put yourself through some questions here. What needs to change for us to move closer to the larger vision? So if I'm at point A and the larger vision is point B, I know this is basic, but you would be amazed at how many leaders miss this thought process and get caught up in too many of the wrong details, and they're asking the wrong questions, and they're just spinning their wheels and not moving forward in the organizational growth and progression. So what needs to change in order for us to move closer to that larger vision? Here's where we are. What needs to happen? This is where you're praying and you're developing that strategy, and it's pretty apparent. Okay, I know when I go out into the woods that the map and my compass are going to show me the direction that I need to go. I'm at point A and I want to go to point B. That map and that compass are going to point me in the right direction. Then I'm going to be able to see the terrain that I'm going to walk through. And I know what my strategy needs to become in order to deal with the terrain to get to where I'm headed. It's the same thing in leadership. Okay? Once you know the direction, you know where you're starting, then you can adjust and you can figure out what problems need to be solved and all of that stuff, and what people changes need to happen, what new thought processes need to be introduced. It all begins to click when you do that. So here's some questions that will help you narrow that down and find out what those issues are. So letter A, what is going good? Okay, change does not have to be built around things that are going bad. You can ask yourself, what's going good? Maybe the change is putting more energy and effort and finances and resources behind something that's successful as all get out and just needs an extra push. So what's going good? What's going bad? Is it structure? Is it people? Is it the wrong strategy? Maybe it's the right idea, but we've got the wrong strategy for implementing it. What's going bad right now? It helps you identify it. And this C kind of piggybacks off of B. What's missing and what do we need? So if something's going bad, let's figure out why. Okay, is this something that we want to continue to pursue? If it's yes, then what do we need to change? If it's no, then how do we kill it so that we can not waste energy on it and then focus on something that's going to produce? So what's confusing or unclear in what we do? If you got something that's not clear and people are doing it and nobody really knows why they're doing it, why do we do things this way? Is there a more productive way to get this task done? Or are we just doing this because we've done this for the last 5 years? Because when Billy was here, Billy showed Renee how to do it, and then Renee showed Clark how to do it that way, and it's just been taught that way, and nobody really knows why it's happening that way. Well, it's Billy's fault. We might need to correct it. So reevaluate, assess, and find out what needs to be corrected in that. Now, here's the good news and here's the bad news. For me, this is good news. And leaders that are moving forward, this is good news. You will lose people and programs with or without change. Okay, it's going to happen. Okay, the program's going to die if you don't make the correct changes. And if you make the correct changes, you may lose people that were in love with the old way of doing things. Okay, that change is going to happen. You're going to lose people or you're going to keep people. You're going to see people go or you're going to see new people come in. That is going to happen. The good news is, by staying in step with the right change, you get to choose who you lose. Now, I know that sounds mean-spirited to hear a pastor say that, but it's just reality. It's just reality. You get to choose who you're going to lose. Okay? You are either going to surround yourself with people excited about the vision and the direction and where God's taking the church, or eventually you're going to surround yourself with people that are comfortable and like things the way they've always been and are content to stay on the banks of the Jordan River instead of crossing over into the promised land. Now, what group of people do you want surrounding you? Where do you want the organization to go? How many people do you want to reach with the church? Because in business world and in ministry world, for us as Christian leaders in this church and in out of state and different areas, listen, you're talking about eternal issues. You're talking about reaching people for Jesus. You're talking about providing livelihood for people dependent upon your business to put food on the table. Okay, you're talking about how you take care of those people and invest in them instead of using them for the task that's necessary for the job. You're talking about putting your business in a place to be a blessing to others and a blessing to the kingdom of God, or struggling to keep the lights on and not making any eternal impact at all. I mean, when you think about it through the lens of what's really happening, this is a big deal. And us staying in step with what God is calling us to do in our personal ministries, churches, and businesses, it makes a huge impact on others and the eternity of other people. So you have to ask yourself, do I have what it takes as a leader to hear from God and take the step, even if people who have been with me for the last season don't go with me into the next one? And that's tough. That's tough. That's the pain of growth. But it's a necessary pain if you want to continue to move into what and who God is calling you to be. Does that make sense? So you get to choose. You get to choose to surround yourself with people that are going to complain, love tradition, be full of religion, or you get to choose to surround yourself with people of faith who want to do something for the kingdom of God. You get to choose. So choose to do the right thing. So identifying what needs to change isn't enough. You must follow the proper process for change to be successful. So what I want to do in this next session is give you some really good stuff to help you go through the process of implementing change in your organization. Knowing what to do or knowing where you're going is one thing, but knowing how to implement it is something completely different, because you got to deal with the X factor of people. I want to walk you through what's been real helpful for me in making that happen. So let's take a 5-minute break, get some coffee, run to the bathroom, and then we'll come back. You guys online, we'll see you in 5 minutes, okay? All right, welcome back. You guys feel free to not be rushed in grabbing your food, but make your way back to your seats. We're going to go ahead and start. Thank you guys again for staying with us that are watching online. Hoping this benefits you. And while we were just talking in the break, a lot of different examples came up. One was IBM and how they didn't keep pace with technology and they fell behind the curve. We're in trouble. One example, AT&T, was a good one in how they recognized what was happening and kept pace with the change into the cellular model, wireless model of communication. And they're still one of the major competitors out there. You know, what's going on when they dominated landline forever. So there are examples good and bad in this thing. What you want to do is stay ahead of it. But this is where the rubber meets the road. Most people understand the concept of change and that it needs to happen, and they understand momentum and how important it is. But when it comes to creating it, and you can create it, when it comes to staying ahead of the game and change, and you can, moving people along that process, that's where a lot of us begin to struggle, because I'll be honest with you, how many great examples of this are there out there? Not a lot, but there are some great examples of navigating this change. And so I want to equip you where it's practical today and walk you through leading others through change. Now, this section is probably going to create more questions than give you answers, and that's a good thing. I'm trying to give you as much info as I can on these notes for a couple of reasons. One, so you can follow through this easily. Two, so that you have the majority of the information that I've given you, so you can take this and turn around and teach it in your organization or to your ministry teams or at your church, because we want it to be a benefit to you. So please feel free to take this stuff and use it as you see fit to help you guys take the next step in what you're doing to reach people for Jesus or equip and empower people for Jesus. So leading others through change. You cannot lead successful change by yourself. You must include other people. That flies against everything that I am as a person. It does. Like, I know how this works, but me naturally, this flows against me because I'm type A. All right, let's get the plan. Let's start executing the plan. Why isn't it done yet? You know, well, you just gave it to me 5 minutes ago. I know. So what's going on? You know, I love to see things happening almost immediately because that's how I'm wired. I just like to get things done. Most pastors and even CEOs are taught to be Moses coming off the mountain with the word from God for the people. And so in our minds, we're going to come off that mountaintop all glowy, and we're going to say, this is what God told me that we're going to do. Now go do what I'm telling you to do. Yeah, I see a lot of people are shaking their head. How does that work for you? Not well most of the time. If someone has been walking through that process with you up to that point and they trust you with their life, they'll put a lot of stock in that. Most people don't. Most people don't, and they need to be walked through the process. Everybody wants to be the cool CEO that walks into the boardroom and says, look, we've been doing it all wrong, gentlemen and ladies. We've been doing it all wrong. We're going to change starting immediately, right now, this second. We're going to do boop, 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 boop. We're going to wipe everything we've done for the last 10 years off the table, and we're going to do it this way. And everybody goes, in the movies, yes, yes, and they get celebrated, and Christmas is saved, and all this cool stuff takes place, you know. In real life, that creates a junk load of problems, okay? It splits your organization into micro groups if you move too fast. You got the people that are just, woo, let's go do it. Then you got people that, cool, give me some questions, or give me some answers to these questions that I got, because I need a lot more information before I take a step into what you're talking about doing. Let's process this. And then you've got people that say, yeah, I like things the way they are. I don't understand why we're doing this, so I'm going to camp out here, and you're going to have to really convince me or pick me up and take me there, or I'm not going to do it on my own. And maybe I'm going to find some other place that's doing it like I'm comfortable with. Well, I said in the last session, you get to choose who you keep. Listen, there's a lot you can do in a preventative manner and walking people through the process of change so that you don't have to lose that many people. Okay? Now, there are just some attitudes and some spirits. It just doesn't matter. Jesus himself could come down and cast vision, and they would say, yeah. Okay? They do it every day. They do it every day with the vision he's already cast. Okay, don't even get me started in that stuff. God almighty. Anyway, but it doesn't work the way it works in movies. It doesn't work the way that it works in these great Hallmark movies. Good gravy. You knew Hallmark was coming. You knew it was coming. As leaders, we like to move fast. Okay, the process of change cannot be rushed. Can't. Be prepared to feel like you are swimming in peanut butter. It's just, peanut butter was good for me because it's just sticky and it's hard to move around in. Just be prepared. Just be prepared. I'm telling you right now, I know how this works. I've implemented this stuff. I even have leaders that have been implementing this stuff with great success for 30 plus years. And they still say it takes an extreme act of patience, willful patience, and discipline to go through this process. Because as a leader, you're wanting to charge the hill. Okay, it's burning in your heart. God has dropped it into your spirit. Okay, he has given you the creativity and the wisdom to be able to see what needs to happen in the next steps of the business. Your employees haven't seen it yet. Your executive team hasn't seen it yet. And you're ready to charge the hill, but they have no idea what you're talking about. You've got to walk them through that process and let them process it and own it for themselves. Listen to me. Speed kills. Speed kills. One of the most repetitive mistakes I have made in my leadership in the church over 20 some odd whatever years, okay, has been that I have often been guilty of moving too fast with things and not allowing time for people to process it. Okay, listen, that's on you as a leader. You can't be selfish but trying to accomplish even the will of God when you are required to take the people with you. You got to go through the process of walking them through it. We just launched into, I'll give you an idea, like we just launched into a new phase of ministry here at our church. We launched 7 strategic areas of ministry because before we were just, out of COVID, we mostly had Sunday morning services going on, practices, and a couple of auxiliary things happening, not a lot. So we launched 7 key areas of ministry, and we launched a vision campaign to go along with that to help fund the next steps and make things happen. And it's still ongoing. The 7 areas of ministry are happening. This is one of them, by the way. So praise God for the success that we're seeing in these things here at our church. And we're praying you're seeing the same things at your church. But just for what happened this fall, when did we start that? Was it September? Into August going into September, yeah. So listen, that process took us over a year on different levels. Okay, the actual building of structure and development of leadership so that we could do what we're doing now took a year to happen. I had to start pouring into leaders to get them where they needed to be so that I could operate in a different capacity in the church. I couldn't do this until they stepped up to here to do this. So that had to happen. That's a year's worth of growth. The actual casting of vision and talking about it took 9 months to make happen. Okay? Just for the little bit of stuff that we were doing. Now, big stuff for us compared to what we had going on. There are larger projects that we could have gotten into, but even doing what we're doing, okay, you're talking a year for development, 9 months for vision casting leading into it. So that we did not rush people. And it was very successful. I'm always looking at things and thinking, we could have done this better, I could have done that better, and I'll do this different next time, But it was successful because of the work that went into it on the front end. Now, it hasn't always been that way, But this time I felt like we did the best job we've ever done as a leadership team in implementing change in our church. But it takes time. Speed kills, okay? And here's the reason why. Often the change we need to make will personally impact others in our organization. They will experience growth pain. And as a leader, you must walk them through it. Well, we know what we need to do is move from Sunday school to small groups. It's a step for our church. That's awesome unless you're a Sunday school teacher that feels like they just lost their area of ministry. Okay, you need to walk them through that. That's awesome unless you're the director of the Sunday school. Okay, we need to be a little more diverse in our worship styles going forward. That's great unless you're the worship leader. Unless you're playing in the band. We need to change this about our. You understand what I'm saying? We need to reorganize and restructure this area of the business because it's redundant and it fits better under here. And we need to streamline this. So this is going to be the direct report. This person was running something, but they need to follow up under this person now so that it can streamline, operate better, and then they'll report to me. It cuts down on what I have to do, and it makes things more efficient. Awesome, unless you're this person that just got demoted, at least in their eyes. Okay? Change creates growth pain in people. Changing styles, changing focuses, changing locations, changing sales strategies. It's going to take people out of their wheelhouse and force them to adopt something different. And they're going to need time to process that, and you got to give it to them. You have to give it to them. So look, the big takeaway in this first section is move slow. Okay? Move slow. There are some instances where God will say, do this now. Okay? That's non-negotiable. You have to do it now. That's the exception, though, and not the rule. Move slow because you are bringing a lot of thoughts, questions, concepts, preconceived ideas, and history with you. Okay? You're bringing a lot of that into that change, so you better be cautious and you better be attentive to what needs to happen with these people to walk them through it. Okay? Because how many times, I'll just be honest with you, how many times have you felt devalued through the process of change in a business or a church? You felt excluded from what was happening. You felt like a small group of people made a big decision and you didn't even have time to figure out what was happening, and it was already done. And it feels like, okay, well, I guess I'm not in the loop. I guess I'm not in the cool club. I guess they don't want to hear my feedback. And it devalues you. We've all experienced that probably. So you don't want your people to experience that. If you walk them through the process, the exact opposite is going to happen. They will feel valued. They'll feel important. They will take stronger ownership in the change. Even if they don't like it, they'll still take stronger ownership in it and probably end up supporting it even though they're on the fence with it because you took the time to hear what they have to say and walk them through that process. So you got to consider the fact that people are going to change. Listen, they're not being stubborn. They're not being problem people. They're not being witches and warlocks in the church necessarily. All right? I done lived long enough to know it necessarily. Okay, what they have are questions that they need answers to. They need to understand a huge question. Every leader you have will carry 2 buckets with them through the change. One is water, the other is gasoline. Which one they use is largely impacted by how we walk them through buying into, and here's the word, why. It's largely impacted by how we walk them through buying into the why of the change. Okay, why are we doing this? Why are we moving from hymnals to screens? What's the point? The vision is worship. Okay, here's why. Because we're able to do cool stuff like this Instead of, well, we're able to connect with people, connect with another generation, blah, 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 this, and we're still accomplishing the vision. We're still worshiping. So the why is to, you see what I'm saying? You got to walk people through. Why? Why are we doing this? We moved location as a church 2 years ago. I'll just teach out of what we've experienced. Whew, boy, that question came up a lot. Why? Pastor, why are we doing this? Pastor, why are we doing this? You know why? We had a church at the time that was beat up like crazy. We had been through some mess. You guys that are newer, you don't know a lot of the history, but I mean, church lost a ton of income, ended up losing the facility, went portable, moved in with another church, and then we landed on that little rented place over on Fairburn Road, and that became the sanctuary, dude. That was finally our home, our place. Things began to feel normal for us as a church on Fairburn Road. Okay? Then we had the transition of pastors. This new guy named Josh comes in, and the first thing Josh starts talking about is, hey, we need to begin looking at getting out of this place and finding a different facility. Why? Here's why. Because we had no space for our next generation ministries. That's the why. The adults were happy. Okay? The adults didn't see the reason. The adults, fine, we've got plenty of room for the adults to be in here and worship and all that stuff. They didn't see the ghetto-looking room that our kids and our youth were having to use. They didn't see that. All they saw was the prettied up little sanctuary that they were walking into. And I knew our church was capped. It was never going to grow until we created an environment for our next generation ministries to strive. That was the why. Then we figured out that we could save 40% moving here and gain 60% more space by doing it. Those are whys. Those are whys. Well, why don't you just trust me as the pastor and just know that I'm hearing from God and this is what we've got to do? Quit being a problem person and just fall in. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, good luck with that one. Good luck with that one. And here's the problem, and this is what you have to realize. Look, every person is their own individual, all right? They stand on their own 2 feet. They're going to make decisions for themselves, all right? You need to respect that and give them the courtesy that requires. But here's the deal. These people are carrying gas or water. I'll say it again. They're carrying gas or water, all right? They can either put out the fires for you that are going to pop up, or they can inflame them because they're with the other person that doesn't understand why we're doing it. Pastor's lost his mind. This is a great location. Why are we doing this? You want water, not gasoline. You create water by walking people through the process and explaining the why. If people can understand why, even if they don't necessarily 100% agree with it, they see the value in it, and a lot of times they'll go along with it. Okay? Give them the why. Give them the why. And take the time to have a good conversation with them. I want to walk you through this stuff. Whew, Lord have mercy. Everybody say patience. We'll pretend like it's a Sunday morning. I'll get you repeating after me here. Say patience. You don't force change on them. As a leader, you bring them into the conversation. I want to say that again. You bring them into the conversation and let them have a voice in the process. The goal is to give them a voice. And you might find out that you're going to gain a lot of wisdom from people by allowing them to speak into the process. Okay, you might think that the lowest person on the totem pole in your business is just showing up to work part-time right now. All right, give them a voice in the process. Oh, man, their productivity is going to go through the roof. Why is the owner of the business, why does he ask me? That's crazy. He's asking me about this. And, okay, he's actually using my feedback in this. That makes all the difference in the world, people. And you gain some invaluable information from somebody that had just the right idea at just the right time. and you were able to get it because you took the time to bring them into the process.
Undercover boss.
Yeah, undercover boss. Man, did y'all ever see the undercover boss spoof they did on Saturday Night Live with Kylo Ren, with the Star Wars guy? It was great. You should go watch it. It's pretty funny. I say that. I think it was pretty clean. I got to fix that now, or I'll be creating fires here. I don't want fires. I think it was pretty clean. So you don't want to force them into it. Give them a voice to speak into the process. Now, listen. When I say give them a voice to speak into the process, I mean everybody. Everybody. And that's going to take a long time. And that's why you move slow. Okay? That's why you move slow. It takes time to do this. I'm going to walk you through what I do here at the church, and you can just apply this to your business or ministry. And if you're not leading, listen, let this equip you for the day that you do, and let you at least, listen, help your leader when you recognize this process taking place. This is gold, okay? So what you want to do is tear out the conversations. Let me actually do this as a question. This is what I'm talking about. I mean, you've got to tear out the conversations beginning with your top leaders and slowly move down through each level. Yeah, each level. That's why that question mark is there. Each level. Most people don't understand this. They'll have conversations with an executive level and then expect everybody else to jump on board. Whew, you just created a bottleneck. You just created a us and them instead of we. Okay, you don't want us and them. You want we. We own this. This is our church. This is our business. I know you don't own it, but when you're here, you're a part of this culture and you're helping us be successful. We're doing this together. So each level of leadership, that's what you got to do. So for me, I'm going to be praying. I want to hear the vision from God, or I'm going to see something that needs to change. Usually it's going to be you as the leader. And then I'm going to go to True North every time. I want to go to my wife. Okay. True North looks different. Why do you go to your wife? Because if I see something that needs to change, like a leadership roundtable, we need to launch it to help other leaders be more effective in what they're doing. That takes a time commitment, and I want to run that by my wife so she can say, hey, that is going to be an extra 8 to 10 hours a month that you're going to need to put in, or a quarter that you're going to need to put in on that. I'm okay with that. Go for it. I'll go to True North, and let her give me feedback on the change and the cost of the change. All right. A lot of times we don't look at the cost of the change. Look at the cost of the change and make sure that it's going to be worth it. So I'll go to her. That may look different for you. It might be your best friend. It might be someone working with you that is a partner with you. But you go to True North with the change every time to get a good perspective on it. My wife sees things differently from me. She is, man, especially when it involves issues with people, she is so much more empathetic than I am. Whew, man, she has saved me a lot of crazy conversations. Josh, why don't you just take an extra day and pray through that? Okay, I'm going to do that. Changes everything. It changes everything. So I go to True North. Then I'm going to go to a small group of executive leaders. That could be board members and senior leadership in the church. But I'm going to pick my top leaders that are going to give me the best unbiased feedback on this. I don't want yes people. Look, if it's a dumb idea and I just ate too many Cheerios, tell me. Pastor Josh, I think maybe you had too many Cheerios. You think so? Okay. Well, let's take 2 weeks and pray on it together, and then let's come back and let's see. Maybe I did have too many Cheerios. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to walk them through it, and I'm going to get feedback on the change and the new strategy. Okay. I'm going to let them talk to me. Then I'm going to go to my board. Okay, when I know that this is a thing, I'm going to go to the board, and I'm going to say, hey, look, this is the change that's probably coming up. Or I'm doing A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z. I'm going to let you know, can anybody give me a reason why we should not do this? and I listen. Okay, is there anything we can do to make this better? I ask questions and I get feedback. So once the board knows, here I go to the directional team and the staff, and I start talking them through what's happening. My directional team knows this. They know if we're having a conversation this month, it's going to be a teaching point in a couple of months with the rest of the leadership in the church, because it tears out over time. So we're talking about stuff today that's going to get implemented in the next season. Directional team and staff. Then after that, we get the department heads on board, either in one-on-one conversations or together in a session. Every tier of leadership. Once the department heads are on board and they've processed it and they've had an opportunity to speak into it, then I go to the volunteers and the teams. And once they've had an opportunity to go through all of that, then we go to the church and we go public. And the guys that are here at Eastgate, think about the process of change we went through, step by step by step by step. Swimming in God-blessed peanut butter. So much peanut butter everywhere. I just got the peanut butter off of me, and I'm jumping back in another tub of peanut butter now. Because even though we're doing what we're doing now and we're riding this wave and it's awesome, I'm already thinking and praying about next steps and what we're doing. And these are conversations that are starting through this process again. Listen, you cannot cheat this process. You have to get feedback from your people. So here's the questions that I'm asking as I'm going through this. And this will just equip you, give you some practical stuff, give you a talking sheet to go off of while you're processing change with your people. So I'll go through and I'll say, look, here's what I'm seeing that needs to change. Here's a problem, or here's something we're doing good that I think that we can do better. Here's what I'm seeing. I want to make sure that they're seeing the same thing. And then B is the key to everything. Here is why it needs to change. I'm thinking that we're going to have to pave the back lot that we have back here and put in a whole lot of parking lot spaces. Here's why I think we need to do it. Because I'm seeing attendance cycles get tighter in the church. More people were showing up more frequently. We have kicked 8,000 different areas of outreach and marketing into play here at the church. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I know what's coming. So we need to begin to prepare for it right now. So let's set aside money. Let's start raising money for this. Let's start raising money, Eastgate people, to update this building and make it look better than it does right now. So when this influx comes in, you see what I'm saying? Here is why we're doing this. You don't want to change for the sake of change. Make sure you've got a why. And here's another big one. Give me your thoughts. Do not be afraid to ask that question. Give me your thoughts on it. And not just to your executive team. Everybody that's involved, have the conversation. Well, that's a lot. I know a pastor of a church of 7,000 people that did this. He touched base with over 750 volunteers and leaders in his church, and he did it personally in meetings, groups, and conversations. Why? Because it works. And it's the right thing to do. And even if you got big numbers, it means you don't skip the process. So you don't skip the process if you want to be successful. Am I missing anything that you could better address, or you feel could better address the needed change? So the problem is the problem. Am I going about it the right way, or is there something better we could do to solve the problem more efficiently? And here's a big one. Please help it, or please keep it at our level for now, but when the time comes, can you help me walk others through the upcoming change? Can you help me implement this change? I've had a conversation with them. Look, my door's always open. Come talk to me, but when the time comes, help me with this, because I can't do it by myself. It can't be me. It has to be we doing this together. If you do all of that, then what you've done is you've just put water in a bucket instead of gasoline. Okay? Tradition will fall quickly. Preconceived notions fall quickly. If you get that process down, it puts out a lot of fires. It takes care of a lot of problems. Okay? Just practical stuff. Slow. Speed kills slow. All right. Peanut butter. Every time you go into an area of change, think peanut butter. You're going swimming in peanut butter. Every time. And it's going to drive you nuts because the person's going to ask the same question that you've answered from 20 other people. Give the answer. All right? Listen to the concern. Address it. At the end of the day, listen, as a pastor or a leader, your job is to equip the people of God for works of service. It's your job to shepherd that ministry or that church into the direction that God is calling it to go. It's your responsibility, listen now, to do everything within your power to take away every opportunity the enemy could have to frustrate somebody in your church or your business and cause potential friction, chaos, or division in your church. That's your job. Okay? If somebody chooses to do that, let it be their own individual choice because they're a tearhead, a witch and a warlock through and through, and not because you could have done something different as a leader to prevent that problem from happening. All right? Let's take 5 minutes. Get some coffee, go to the bathroom, and I'm going to quickly walk you through this last section, being in a strong position personally to lead the change. All right? We'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, here we go into this next session. Hey, you guys watching online, thanks for staying with us. If you're watching this on a delayed viewing later, I'm glad you got to this part in the sessions. Hoping it's blessing your life. Hope it's a blessing to everybody here. Is this blessing everyone so far? Yes. All right. Good deal. Good deal. You know, it's amazing to me how long I went in ministry leadership and even owning a business and dealing with contractors and employees and all of that stuff before I actually learned how to walk people through the process of change and adopting new strategies. And I can tell you, I can see a marked difference from that point going forward and the frustrations that I had to deal with in leadership. That's another point that I haven't talked about yet, is that you are taking your meetings, even though you're putting a lot in on the front end for the change by having meetings, you are removing a lot of meetings off the back end, having to deal with discontent and upset people because you took time to put out the fire before there was a fire. So that's always the best time to put a fire out, before it starts. Every time. So trying to equip you. If you are free from that kind of headache, you have so much more emotional energy and mental energy to put towards next steps for your organization and the church that God's called you to, or the business that you're running. It snowballs into something a lot more beautiful than dealing with a frustration of what you see as difficult people. Most difficult people are just uninformed people that haven't been walked through the process of what's going on. So let's talk about being in a strong position to lead change. So knowing what needs to happen and then at least getting a good glimpse of the process of walking people through that change to make it happen is one thing. None of that happens, though, if you as a leader are not in a position to make that change happen. And this is what I'm talking about. People buy into you before they buy into the change. Every time. You got to be trustworthy. They've got to think you are the man or the woman that's able to help spearhead and make that happen. At the end of the day, people will need to trust you to lead the process of change. That trust is earned by your track record. What you're doing today as a leader will determine how successful you're going to be in this arena of change tomorrow. You can't take your foot off the gas in your own personal development and growth, because people will notice it. And I want to quickly go through this, because when you talk about our personal responsibility to be leaders, most of us get what it takes to grow ourselves. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'm going to remind you, you better be growing. And you better be establishing a track record that's going to cause people to say, this guy wants to go from here to there. It's going to cost and create all of this work. Are they legitimate? Have they proven themselves to be trustworthy? Is this a sincere motivation that we're seeing in them? Or are they trying to build something for themselves instead of looking at the betterment of the organization? All these questions are going to pop through people's heads in microbursts, and you're going to have the answer already established by your track record, or the questions are going to get bigger and create problems in trying to move forward. So a lot of leaders that I work with, especially going through the process of change or issues that they have, they always ask, why are people resisting the change? Why are people resisting me as a leader? Why can't I walk in the room and people listen to what I'm saying? I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I'm the manager, I'm the CEO. Why am I having to, why aren't they listening? Why don't I feel respected the way that I feel like I should be respected? And why won't they get on board with what we're trying to accomplish? 99% of the time, the answer is going to be your track record. 1% of the time, you've got a troublemaker that you need to deal with. Most of the time, it's going to be you. All right. Now I know that's not popular because we like to project stuff. Daggum people, if they would just yeah. But if you had done what you said you were going to do as an executive or as a leader, and had a track record of consistency, then they would probably put more value in what you're saying right now. They're probably just waiting for you to not follow through on this, like you didn't follow through on the last 10 things you said you were going to do. So, and this is stuff I hit myself with too, so I'm not just throwing shade. It's the process we need to think about as leaders. So, questions to ask yourself: do you have integrity? Not your definition of integrity. Okay, a biblical definition of integrity. Well, I do pretty good. I only watch a little bit of porn. I only cheat on my wife just a little bit. I only go to lunch with the women employees and flirt just a little bit. You know, she might laugh along, but you just lost integrity in her eyes. Guaranteed. Do you have integrity as a leader? If you don't, listen, you have very little ground to stand on at all. Okay? They need to know you have integrity. Do you operate with excellence? Do you do the best that you can do with what you have to work with? Or are you a status quo kind of person? Do you stay half a step in front of the people that you lead because you know they don't know the difference? Or are you striving to become the best that you can be in leading and managing and directing and doing what you do? Okay? Integrity falls into how you operate with excellence. Operate with excellence. If you don't set that bar yourself, you're never going to see it as a reality in your organization. Okay? And here's a follow-up on that. Do you hold others to a consistent standard of excellence in the organization? So it's not just you, but you refuse to let other people set the bar for the organization that you lead. There's always going to be those people that try to be water in a bad way. There's good water that puts out fire. Okay, there's bad water that follows the path of least resistance. You want to take care of that quickly. Okay? Do not let people lower the standard that you set. This has been the constant issue of ministry since I have been in ministry. It's a constant frustration of CEOs and bosses and business owners. When I'm on the job, they're hustling and they're after it. When I'm not on the job with them, they can't get nothing done. Okay? You need to revisit excellence and make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that know how to operate in it. Are you approachable? Big questions. Okay, if you're not approachable, all this stuff that we've just talked about regarding change is never going to happen. You need to be approachable. Okay, that means you have to divorce yourself from pride, from ego. You have to sometimes sit humbly and listen to people say what you're going to wait for them to talk for 10 minutes so that you can give them the answer that you had in your brain before they opened their mouth. Okay? And you need to be able to stop and listen and let them say it and then give the answer. And then process them through to the answer after they say what you said was the answer isn't the answer. Okay? Well, I tried that. It's not working. It works. You're not trying it. You got to get them there. Are you approachable and patient with people? Okay, or are you guarded, rigid, and shoot people down? Do you genuinely care for the leaders and people in your church, ministry, or business? People know. People know. You ever work for a person that you knew didn't give a flying rip about you? They dumped everything on you at the last minute. You got chewed out more than encouraged. That kind of stuff. Okay, you're communicating something to your people if you do that. You're saying you don't matter. Okay, you're saying you're a tool that gets me what I need. If you will hit pause on that, step away from it, and actually communicate things that say, I love you, you're important. I'm not just here to give you a job, but I'm invested in you as a person. I want to see you succeed in anything you want to do in life. And while you're here, I want to set you up for that success. Whew. Boy, that communicates something completely different to that employee. And it sets you up to be in a strong position to lead change when the time comes for change. So, do you have integrity? Are you operating with excellence? Do you hold others to a consistent standard of excellence? Are you approachable? Do you genuinely care? If you can't answer yes to all of these things, you're going to have trouble having solid ground to lead people through change on, because it's going to create a question about you. Now, I'm saying you got to be perfect. I haven't met a perfect person yet. I read about a guy named Jesus. I look forward to meeting him in person one day. But outside of that, I've never met a perfect person. I've seen some great people. I'm not saying you got to be perfect. I'm saying being your best and apply this stuff. It'll go a long way. So that's step one. Okay, check yourself is what I'm saying. Here's something else. You will never have time to pray over and plan the next steps for your organization until you make time to do it. I know, and that's the problem. I don't have extra time to sit around and pray and plan because I'm too busy doing the stuff that we're already doing right now. You ever had that problem? Yeah, because we're leaders, we're overseers, we're business owners, we're the ones making things happen. We're busy by nature, all right? But you can't be too busy to stop and look at the next steps. People say, all that sounds great, but I don't have the available time for that. Well, listen to me. Time won't magically appear. You have to create it. You've got to be intentional about it. So as a leader, you don't get the excuse of saying, I don't have enough time. As a leader, you're responsible for creating the time that's needed to get everything done. And it's not just the task on hand. It's looking forward to tomorrow. So here's some practical stuff to help you in opening up spots on your schedule. And I know this is a great goal for most people and hard to accomplish for most people too, but work ahead of schedule to create pockets of time. Okay, this is a new way of thinking for most people, but you work ahead of schedule, okay, not in the midst of what's on fire trying to put it out. You operate ahead of schedule. Everybody say get ahead. Got to get ahead of schedule. Think about it. When you were in high school or college, how did you study for a test? Last minute. Everybody, almost unanimously. Nope. Most people don't have structured set schedule times. They operated, and very few people did that. Most of us, last minute, let's cram, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Let's just get it out. You can't operate like that as a leader. Okay, you can't cram last minute for stuff. You got to stay ahead. It's a new way of thinking, so you have to retrain yourself. And here's some pros to working ahead. Okay, look, it gives better control of your schedule because now you're planning to get things done, and it's giving you more control over your schedule. It creates and allows time for more creativity. When you're ahead of time, then you can put more creative energy on the projects that you're working on instead of scrambling last minute trying to push them across the finish line. It creates time for higher excellence. Working ahead of time and getting things done and operating in advance on projects and things. Listen, it allows you to take the time that's needed for excellence. Excellence takes time. It takes time. You can't just throw something together and expect it to be excellent. It also makes opportunities to bring others along to develop them. That's used by working ahead and knowing what's coming up. It allows you as a leader to do your number one responsibility, and that's reproducing other leaders. You can look at what's going on, figure out who best suits the task, and train them through what's coming up to be better at what they're doing, to free you to go do big picture items in the organization. It also creates more time in your schedule because your time becomes more productive. If you're ahead of the game, then your time becomes more productive because you don't have this stuff called pressure pushing you in the moment. Okay? You'll have more energy, you'll have better focus, and you'll get more stuff done. What would take you 3 hours will take you 1 hour if you will stay ahead of the game. So how do you do that? Well, here's 50 cents worth of advice. Don't try to manage your time. Set your priorities. Don't try to manage your time. Set your priorities. What gets your time determines your success and enjoyment of life. And I'll give you an example. For my personal priorities, personally, I want to have my relationship with God. I want to have time with my family. That's my wife, my children, extended family. then my calling is going to come with that. Really, calling and relationship with God flow together, but I'm always going to be close to God before I do something for God every time. So after that, then I'll hang out with my friends. Then I'll have some fun. Those are my priorities, pretty much in order. Those things are going to get my time. Everything else is going to have to wait until I accomplish these things, and then I'll give my time to them. As a radical way of thinking in today's society, especially with these little things right here, man, these little guys right here connect us to everything. And all it takes is one video on Facebook to connect us to YouTube, and here goes an hour and a half, 2 hours, like that. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. And it's just, why do I want to see a dog and a cat dance? But I just did for 15 minutes. I don't understand that. And so priorities help cut a lot of that stuff out. Now, and what I do as a leader, okay, here are my priorities. All right, number one, to hear from God on the direction for the church. It looks different for you as a business leader. Your job is to figure out the next steps, how to increase sales, how to, who you're going to bring in, how you're going to train those people in order to have sales where you need them in 6 months. All of that stuff, that's your job. So my job is to hear that from God for the church. I communicate on Sunday, which is a huge time commitment for me. Everybody asks me, how much time do you spend in sermon prep, Josh? Usually right now it's around 20 hours. Just because I want to make sure I'm doing my best for God. Casting vision for what God's doing in the church. Well, how much time does that take? We just walked through how much time that takes, okay? That takes a lot of time. Outside of casting the vision, developing leaders. Okay, what we're doing right now is part of that. It's developing leaders. Those 4 things are my priorities. Everything else I delegate, I assign to someone else, or I let someone operate in their skill. Like, you want to know why I don't lead worship? Because Jeremy and Sharina do a much better job. They can actually sing, but they're gifted and called to do that. The mistake a lot of us as leaders make is that we have our fingers on too many things in the organization instead of training and turning people loose to thrive in their calling so you can thrive in yours. I stay in these 4 things because if I do this as a leader, if I do this as a pastor, our church is going to be very effective. Our church is going to be very productive, and we're going to reach a lot of people. If I start taking on outside tasks, it's going to take me away from what I need to be doing the most as a pastor. Okay, I have to realize the spiritual impact of that. Okay, so like right now, I am chairing the men's ministry in our church. Okay, that's something that I'm doing right now for this season that does not fit into what I'm doing. It kind of does because I'm developing the leaders in that ministry so I can eventually step out of it, but it's got to be developed. You know, a lot of mistakes we make is we've got our hands in too many different things. Our extra time is just allotted because we're doing way more than we need to, and it's taxing us and taking us away from what we need to do most. And more importantly, it's standing in the way of other people thriving in their calling. Okay? So when I say set your priorities, define those things that are most important. Listen, and then say no to everything else until that's done. You know how many messages and phone calls I have missed when I set my phone to the side and start writing content for sessions like this, or for Sunday mornings, or for teaching sessions on Tuesday night for my leadership team, or little 30-second ads that go on the radio right now, which is just taking a lot more time than I thought it would. You know, I usually spend, right now it's almost a day creating the content, then recording the ads and getting them in time. You never know how hard it is to get something under 30 seconds till you got to get something under 30 seconds. It's just crazy, man. So I say no to everything so that I can do those things. And then when I'm done with those things, I'll look at my phone and say, oh, I've got 32 phone calls or whatever. Most of the time, those emergencies in the moment for those people have resolved themselves by the time I call them back. And it ends up saving me time, and it teaches them to solve stuff on their own instead of reaching out to me every time something goes wrong in their life. so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. I don't do pastoral care in this church. A lot of people think that's crazy. I don't do it because C.J. Varney is way more better at it than I am. That's why I don't do it. And I don't have a problem saying that. That woman is gifted and called to do it. If I took over pastoral care in this church, it would fall so many levels down from where it is right now, because I'm not wired like CJ, and for me to do that. Now, do I visit people in the hospital? Yeah. Do I call people when they're sick? Yes. Do I pray with people? Yes, but I don't carry the weight of it because it's not my priority. Somebody else is gifted and called to do it. Now, I have the time that I need to do what God's called me to do, and I'm not exhausted or worn out all the time because I'm doing 10 other jobs outside of the one that I'm doing to pastor the church. Make sense? So, priorities. By setting your priorities, you have control over what gets your time, and it allows you to say no to everything else. You have that power. You choose what you do with your time. You choose what you surrender it to, or you choose what you invest it in. What I'm saying is choose to invest it in the right stuff, because it will free up time for you to be able to see the next steps that are coming up in your ministry or your business. You won't be able to see it if you're nose to the ground focused on today. You've got to create time for you to be able to sit back and be in the presence of God and say, Father, this is not my church. This is your church. These are not my leaders. These are your leaders. I'm here to serve you. Speak to me and tell me what's next. What is the next step we need to take? What can I be doing today to prepare for tomorrow? And you can do the same thing in your business. It's not my business, God. This is yours. You've trusted me with it. What are the next steps? What can I do so that my business benefits your kingdom and serves the people that are employed in this business? That doesn't happen unless you have the time set aside to do it. Okay? Your good ideas aren't good enough. You want to listen to God and then do what he says. Okay? You have to create the time. You have to create the time to be able to make it happen. So here's a closing thought. Change is going to happen in your organization. All right? It's going to happen, for good or for bad. It will either lead to new levels or it will lead to organizational death. By staying ahead of the change, you ensure the continued success and impact of your church, ministry, or business. Hey guys, it's going to happen one way or another. Let's steward what we've been entrusted with well and stay ahead of it so that we're successful in doing what God's called us to do. Amen? Let me pray over you, for everybody watching online, and then we'll get out of here. Before I pray, I will say this. Our next Leadership Roundtable will be December 4th, Saturday, December 4th. So don't forget that. Mark it on your calendar. If you want to come back, you may have been here today and said, oh my gosh, this was a complete waste of my time. I don't want to come back, and that's cool too. You don't have to. We'll miss you. But if it blessed you and you want to continue with this, December 4th, same time, same place, same wonderful food. Good food today, huh? Yeah? All right. Always good stuff. Did this bless you, equip you, help you? That's the goal. That's the goal. Let's impact lives for Jesus. Father, thank you for this time together. Lord, help us. Give us wisdom. Give us creativity. Help us to see those next steps. Father, speak to us individually concerning this information we've covered today. Don't let us be like those that look at the Word of God and then walk away from it and don't apply it, Lord. Let us be the people that do what it says. Let us apply these leadership principles to our lives. It's not what we know, it's what we do that sets us up for success. So, Lord, I pray that we all take that look. And if it means change personally, then let us change personally. If it means changing our approach with other people and how we walk them through the process, then, Lord, let us swim in that peanut butter and go through the process to set people up for success in your kingdom. Lord, if it's having the courage to step out and trust you and move into areas that are uncomfortable for us, and Lord, let us do that too. At the end of the day, everything we do is for you. We don't want to build a platform, Father. We want to build altars where lives can be changed and impacted by your Spirit. And I pray that it is in all of our lives, Lord. Let us thrive in leadership so your kingdom can move forward. We just thank you for everything in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. God bless you. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching online. A couple of questions and comments.